I'll now call to order the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. On March 12, 2026, we acknowledge that this is a sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located and has been the site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This is the ancestral territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and the water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken promises and the need to reconcile with our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. I'm Jacqueline Grimes, the chair of the committee. I'll now take attendance of the committee members. Councillor Jay Brennan.
Present.
Councillor Stephen Robinson.
Present.
Yvonne Robert.
Present.
Mary Remming.
Present.
And Klaus Vandermeer.
Present.
Can I have an approval of the agenda? Carried by Stephen, moved by Klaus. All in favor? Adoption of minutes, Planning Advisory Committee meeting February 12, 2026. I have Mary, Stephen, all in favor. Okay. Disclosure of any monetary interests. Or none. Public meeting report number PAC 26-03 consent application B26-01 361 Queen Street. We will now open the public meeting portion of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting to consider consent application for 361 Queen Street. Application B26-01 proposes to sever a 2.02 hectare, 4.99 acre parcel of land located at 361 Queen Street, formerly known as the Gallipo Center. The proposed severance would leave a retained lot of 145.88 hectares that comprises the former Rideau Regional Complex and frame lands. At this time, no new development or change of use is proposed of the retained lands. The proposed severed lands are currently vacant. However, the application is intended to facilitate the eventual development of our proposed 4-story, 256-bed long-term care facility on the severed parcel. That development would be subject to subsequent approvals under the Planning Act. The subject property has split designations. The parcel to be severed is designated Highway Commercial, while the remainder is designated Specific Policy Area 3, Gallipo Center and Gallipo Mixed Use in the official plan. The subject lands are not regulated by the comprehensive zoning bylaw, but are governed instead by the development permit bylaw 8825-2015. The parcel proposed for severance is identified as Highway Commercial on Schedule A development permit area of the bylaw. This meeting is your opportunity to provide any feedback on this application, and the Planning Advisory Committee welcomes any questions and comments you might have. Still have everybody?
We need one screen over here. Yes, you can see Jacqueline. Okay.
Yep. Is it still live?
Okay.
Yeah.
We encourage you to do so at this public meeting, as the Planning Act rules suggest that the public's ability to voice any objections later in the process may be limited if written or oral comment is not submitted. The Planning Advisory Committee is the approval authority for consent and minor variance applications. The committee will review this application and consider comments from the public in order to form their decision on this application. I will now pass the meeting over to Richard Grant, Planner 1, to report on the notification and summary of the consent application for 361 Queen Street. Following his presentation, we will open the floor to comments from the public. The applicants or their agents will also have an opportunity to address any concerns brought to the floor by the public. Richard.
Okay. In February, we received a request to sever 2.02 hectares of parcel located at 361 Queen Street, with a retained lot would be 145.88 hectares. The proposed parcel for severance is vacant, fronting onto Queen Street with a frontage of 145
Speak up, please.
114 and 21 meters for the frontage. The subject property is the former Rio Regional Center / the Gallipo Center. The parcel is owned by the Spear Real Estate Holdings Group, and Omniquality proposes a 4-story 256 long-term care facility. At this time, there's no proposed developments for the retained lands. If approved, would be subject to subsequent approvals under the Planning Act. So this is a little bit about the DPS, the Development Permit System. The subject property is split designations with official plan. For the severed parcel is a quarter commercial, and the retained land under the official plan designation is a special policy area 3 for the Gallipo Center / mixed use. The lands are regulated by the Development Permit System, which is an alternative to the comprehensive zoning bylaw that we are familiar with. The DPS, now known as the Community Planning Permit System, consolidates zoning, minor variances, and site plan control into a single streamlined process. The DPS is created to support the redevelopment of the Gallipo Center by offering a flexible, streamlined framework. The development approvals process has 2 systems, a Class 1 and Class 2 permit system, based on scale and complexity of the proposal. The proposed parcel for severance is designated highway commercial within the DPS, and any development on the severed lands will require separate planning. So here we can see a ski map of the subject property. The black would be the 5-acre parcel that's proposed for severance, and the cross hatch would be the retained remainder of the subject property. Here we can see the proposed severance sketch that gives a bit more information about the parcel dimensions for the proposed lot for severance. So this would be the small block area as opposed to the cross hatched. And here we can see the property survey of the proposed parcel. So this property was surveyed recently, I believe last year. And so this is the property survey of the parcel for severance. And here we can see just 2 images of the parcel as it is. The purpose of the public meeting is to involve the community considering a proposed parcel severance at 361 Queen Street. We received public feedback from the Department of Public Works, our chief building official, the RVCA, and Enbridge Gas. We have not received any public feedback to date. Our chief building official has no objections to the proposed severance and has no comments at this time. The following goes for the Public Works Department with no technical submission requirements at this time. Enbridge Gas and RVCA do not have any objections to the proposal or no comments at this time. In terms of the planning review for this application, we looked at the recorded commercial designation policies in the official plan, as well as the infrastructure policies outlined. We also looked at the PBS, which is a planning policy statement, and we also reviewed the heritage easements, heritage conservation easement agreements. So the heritage conservation easement agreement is run through by the Ontario Heritage Trust, and it protects the cultural heritage landscape features and the key heritage buildings on the Gallipo property. The cultural heritage landscape consists of 3 zones: the campus, Glacis, and Ali, and their framing lands. The severance parcel lies adjacent to the framing lands. Section 4.6.7 of the agreement states that lands outside of these zones are not subject to the easement provisions. Staff have reviewed the severance survey and the agreement mapping and confirming that the parcel lies outside of the heritage, cultural heritage landscape. So if you can see here, we can see the cultural heritage features identified, and we can see in blue the parcel for severance, and it lies outside of the framing lines, which means it's not subject to the conditions of the agreement. In terms of the policy review, we also looked at the DPS, which talks about how lands would be developed for the highway commercial area, which is where the severed parcel currently sits. This is just more just for context, as this is the so the proposed parcel is designated highway commercial lands in the DPS. The DPS anticipates a gateway sign parcel on the first subdivided lot if the proposed parcel is severed. And the DPS envisions that the area would be supporting large format commercial uses being part of the highway commercial lands. It also includes the minimal parcel standards such as the 20 to 40 meter frontage requirements. The permitted uses focuses on highway serving commercial functions. The DPS also has provisions on trees, which is speaking very quickly here. So the DPS prohibits injury or removal of distinctive trees, and they define distinctive trees as being a number of things, such as any public tree or private trees with a certain diameter, or trees planted under subdivision conditions. For non-distinctive trees, they must follow the DPS protocols and good forestry practices. Now we're looking at the evaluation in terms of the OP conformity and also for adjacent land use compatibility. So the areas surrounding our former institutional uses as well as existing institutional uses, and also a mix of urban and rural residential uses. Queen Street Corridor is transitioning into with largely vacant areas being designated highway commercial. The proposed facility is an institutional use and would not be considered permitted under the corridor commercial policies, and as such would require additional planning approvals to be permitted if approved. In terms of the compatibility, these amendments would align with the long-term proposal, and they would have to reflect the OP's policy for the corridor commercial growth and development. Despite future amendment needs, staff consider that the lot creation is self-supportable as a parcel is viable as a highway commercial lot, independent of the proposed long-term care development. In terms of suitability, the site is generally considered unconstrained with no steep slopes. Prior to any alteration, a preliminary vegetation and tree assessment would be required as per the DPS. Any identified distinctive trees would follow the DPS tree protection requirements and best forestry management practices. Staff support lot creation subject to contemplating the required preliminary tree vegetation and assessment and any other applicable approvals. In terms of vehicular access, the proposed severance and the 114.1 meter frontage accommodates the functional access for any proposed long-term care facility. Proposed frontage exceeds the 20 to 40 meter frontage for highway commercial lands and would require additional approval for, if approved, but support safe and efficient access for large institutional uses. Relief from maximum frontage requirements would be needed. Staff anticipate no adverse impacts. Detailed access and traffic view will be performed during later stages of development. And lastly, for water and wastewater and service connection availability, water and sanitary services are available along Queen Street. Public Works Department confirms that servicing capacity, but further review will be required to determine will be done at the technical review stage to confirm general serviceability. Staff support lot creation, providing servicing connections are addressed through later approvals. So here we just have a list of the conditions, which typically would require the applicant to provide a survey to ensure that a deed is also provided, as well as paying the outstanding taxes and obtaining the appropriate approvals for the widened frontage for the proposed facility, as well as obtaining a preliminary tree assessment or inventory by a qualified professional. So those would be the conditions staff would recommend if approved.
Thank you, Richard. We will now hear from the applicants for additional information or a presentation as it relates to the application.
Thank you. I know we tested this earlier, but I just want to confirm you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Jacob Bolduc. I'm an associate planner with Foten Planning and Design, agents for Omni Quality Living who submitted the application. I'm joined by Tara Crawford from Omni if there are any operation-specific questions, but as was noted in the very detailed staff presentation, I'd like to thank staff for that. essentially, it's just an application for lot creation at this time. We have had preliminary discussions with staff about the future proposed use of the lands as a long-term care home. However, that would be subject to future development applications, including an OPA and a Class 2 development permit system or development permit. At this time, we're just looking to create the property, and then we're moving forward with discussions with staff through a pre-consultation application to discuss the future potential of the property and the concept plan before we initiate those plans and studies. So at this time, we're just looking to create the parcel as it's an early part of the planning process in order to determine where the facility may be located. But first, we kind of have to draw those lines through the severance process. The severance process being early also allows us to determine not only the property boundaries, but often it's a condition for financing or any other steps moving forward through the planning process. Without going into a full detailed presentation, I'm happy to answer questions, but I would just say that we're today looking simply to create the parcel, which could could be used for highway commercial uses as noted in the staff report. We're not looking at changing the land use today. We're just looking to create the parcel, and we'll be working with staff and proceeding with an official plan amendment and a development permit, which would be, of course, subject to future public consultation for the proposed facility and land use. Thank you.
Tara, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Would you like to add any additional comments?
No, just to piggyback off Jacob, I mean, that's exactly what the plan is for now. And Omni would be looking forward to working with Smith Falls and being part of the local community.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? We will now hear from members of the public who wish to speak. All comments and questions need to be addressed through the chair. Please be advised that verbal comments form part of the public record. As such, we ask that you please state your name and address before providing verbal comment. Any members of the public who wish to speak to this application are asked to please approach the podium one at a time. Comment? Okay.
Is this our own opportunity to speak?
For this application, yes.
I have a few questions.
Sure, come on up to the podium. Please state your name and address.
Where is the podium? Is this
Just
the
stay
podium?
in the general.
Okay. Hi, my name's Larry Taylor. I live at 482 Queen Street with my wife Renee. Just wanted to know where they'll be accessing water. Will it be from the aquifer or from city-provided mains?
Okay.
And also, another question is, I want to know like the impact that construction will have on my being able to get in and out of my driveway in certain places and certain times during construction.
And noise.
And noise as well, yeah. So,
Is it noise during construction or just during the after?
well,
We want to know the times constructions are going to be going on, when we can expect noise, when we'll have some relief from noise.
Okay. So we're talking about the severance today, but maybe the applicant has those answers now. Richard?
I can speak to the servicing. So I know that there's existing servicing for water and wastewater. So I don't believe they're being run for that.
okay.
But for the other questions, I don't have a specific answer on that.
Samir has some answers to that.
Sorry.
He's up. Jacob's got his hand up.
Oh, thank you.
Jacob.
Thank you. I know I could put a virtual hand up, but it seems we've got an update and I don't know where it is. So thank you. To speak to that generally, again, it's very early in the process. We're still completing. Oh, sorry, we haven't even initiated a lot of our initial plans and studies for the original submission. But to your question directly, typically construction noise is managed through the municipal noise bylaw. I don't know the reference number for that. You'd have to check with your planners or maybe your clerk's office. But typically municipalities will have a construction noise bylaw, which outlines when construction activities are allowed to occur. Typically, that's say 7 to 7 weekdays and Saturdays, but not Sundays. I'm not quoting the bylaw. I don't have it in front of me, but most municipalities that we do work in do typically have a noise bylaw that regulates specifically construction noise. As for the access to the site, it's still too early. We do have a concept plan that's been proposed, but that concept plan has not been run through the various civil engineering studies and transportation studies that might end up moving where that driveway is located. So at this stage, we prepare a concept plan that shows, yep, the property is big enough to accommodate the building, to accommodate the parking. We get confirmation from staff that there's city services available, and essentially enough comfort for Omni that they can see a path forward for their proposal. And that's just the step that we're at today. Future construction noise, as I explained, is managed through the noise bylaw. And as for the driveway and access to your site, that'll be determined through the plan that comes through at the next stage of planning applications, for which there will also be a public meeting like this, and we would welcome your feedback. Typically on construction projects, it's disruptive to the neighbors, of course. There might be times where there is noise, as we indicated. And there may be, for example, trucks bringing materials into the site and potentially some temporary construction measures to manage traffic. But I don't believe there would be anything required that would completely eliminate the potential for someone to access their own property. That's not typical.
Did you have anything to add, Chris?
Sure, I could jump in on that. So my name is Chris Samir. I'm sorry, sorry.
We know you, but still.
No, sorry. My name is Chris Samir. I'm the owner of 361 Queen Street, which used to be called the Gallipo Center. It'll probably be called Rideau View Commons is probably the name that will go under. It won't say the Samir Center. That's a little, I don't agree with that, and we won't be calling stuff like that. So we recently built the 128-bed Broadview Nursing Home on Pearl Street. And the neighbors were much closer than the current neighbors are to the facility at Broadview. Broadview had some noise issues. I'm going to say that. There was a lot of what they call bedrock, and Montague and Smith Falls are both noted for this, but we've done some test holes out on the site now. But the site is immediately adjacent to the OPP East Region East Region Center, and there doesn't look like we're going to have any rock breaking here, so that'll be good news for everybody in the surrounding areas. So I don't anticipate any problems with noise. Access to the site, there's a temporary access road there now. I don't see any issues that way whatsoever. So,
Thanks, Chris.
any questions?
Sorry, Richard, and what was your answer to the water?
Oh, there's wastewater and
There's sewer and water running on Queen Street that feed the East Region, OPP East Region headquarters.
Right. Okay. Thank
And
you.
it's adequate for.
I'll now ask if there's any questions from committee members. Jay? Go ahead, Jay.
Oh, thanks. No, I support staff's recommendation. I think this is exciting news. And I understand this is the first step of what is probably a longer process. My question would be to the proponent on how quickly we'd like to see this start, and how the town might help facilitate a speedy construction.
Yes, Jacob.
I'm happy to answer. I think, well, obviously, Terry, you can jump in. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I think as soon as possible would be the best answer. It's still very early, as I said. Step one is knowing the boundaries of the property, because then you can make sure that your civil engineering studies and whatever else is required are specific to those boundaries. So setting those lines is first. I would note that we've already reached out to staff to organize a pre-consultation meeting in order to get that list of plans and studies are required. And then we need to get those done and get a submission in the door. Staff have been great to work with so far. We really appreciate their efforts. It's just a matter of crossing the T's and dotting the I's, like I said, on the architecture, the civil, the landscape, and there's sort of a feedback loop between especially those three elements. But we are looking to submit an application this summer.
Plus?
Great news. Thank you.
I think this is a very exciting project. I look forward to this moving forward. Smith Falls needs to move forward, and this is one good step forward. There'll be a lot more questions as time goes by, as other things come up. I guess the gentleman that lives across the road had some questions. So have all the neighbors been notified that this is going to happen? They have, okay. Has Sheridan Manor been notified this is going to happen? Possibly?
Yep.
Okay, because it's going to be a little bit of a direct competition.
Yes.
I don't think they're subsidized, right?
Pardon?
I don't think they're government subsidized, Sheridan. I don't think.
Sheridan Manor?
Yeah.
They're subsidized by,
LTC, I don't think.
they're subsidized by the county.
Okay, I don't think.
Carl,
they're
you have
long-term
comment?
here.
To respond to Claus's comments, for the consent application, we gave notice within 60 meters of the site, so 200 feet. So the
Okay.
properties immediately across the road on Queen Street would have received notice. The folks a little bit further down Bayview and in that general area, depending on how far they were, they may not have received notice for the consent application. So there's this is the first public meeting. So there is,
Right.
and just creating the land, but the next steps in terms of the official plan amendment, that's subject to a further public meeting, and the notice will be given in advance of that, and that's where they're going to be seeking specific approvals for the land use. So I think it's fair to say that any planning process is a public meeting. So if anyone got a notice or found that their neighbor didn't get a notice, that would be why. Just simply the geography. We circulate notices based on a radius from the proposed property. So by all means, feel free to share the notice and or ask staff if you have any questions about the project.
I just have one more question, if I may share. Just curious more than anything, are we obligated to notify Montague Township this is happening?
The Planning Act requires that we notify Montague Township or neighboring municipalities for certain kinds of amendments typically, and I believe, and Marie can verify that, I believe we would have circulated Montague as a courtesy for the consent
Yeah,
application.
just as a courtesy, I think more than anything else.
Yeah, but we're required to for official plan amendment applications. They would get notice of that.
I have no other further questions.
Okay, anyone else? No? Okay. The committee is tasked with deciding on this application. If the committee is ready to do so, I will now entertain a motion to approve, not approve, or any other decision. Yvonne?
I will move the consent of application.
Okay, I'll seconded by Mary.
Yes, they beat us to it.
Okay. So that if the committee approves, then the following motion noting that the Planning Advisory Committee approved the consent application B26-01, which proposes a 2.02 hectare parcel severance from the subject property of 361 Queen Street, subject to the following conditions as described 1 through 5, with just a note on number 4 that it's the maximum frontage requirements prescribed. So moved by Ron, seconded by Mary. All in favor? Carried. Thank you for attending and participating in the planning process for the consent application 361 Queen Street. Anyone requiring further notice regarding this application is asked to either leave their full name and mailing address or email address on the sign-in sheet located at the table by the door, or contact Planner 1 or the planning clerk by email or phone found on the town website. Appeal rights as prescribed by the Planning Act will be outlined in the notice of decision. If you have any other questions on the application or the process, I invite you to contact the Planner 1 or the planning clerk. This concludes the public portion meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. We will now move on to the next item on our agenda.
You can go if you want.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks.
Take a minute, anybody wants to leave.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it's part of your update number.
Nice.
I'm not cold.
Oh my God.
Well, it's not done yet.
All right. Move on to priority issues. Update minor variance application MB-25-0723 McEwen Avenue.
Okay, so we were able to locate a survey for 25. We did indeed determine that her lot line was where she said it was, which was on the existing building wall. So she was indeed correct in seeking that 0 meter setback. The eaves were encroaching onto the neighbors, but the survey somehow allowed for that, unusual. She decided to withdraw her application because she did not want to run the risk of constructing a property without access onto the neighbor. So the OBC doesn't allow for temporary trespassing. That just doesn't happen. So they would have to get permission from number 25 if they were going to be accessing that driveway to construct her building wall. So she said, you know what, let's not fight anybody. I'm going to just do it on my own. So she's revising her application and has not yet submitted something, but she's not looking for minor variance and she's withdrawn her application. So she forgoes the decision.
Okay.
Or no decision is a decision anyways, but yeah.
Thank you.
So if we could add to that discussion just the survey topic, it was brought up that our committee at one point in the past
Thanks very much.
put a motion, a resolution about the requirements of a survey. Yes, I would. Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's all right, that's all right. Just, I guess, from institutional knowledge, having been
Yes.
employed here before, I had mentioned following the last meeting that this committee, granted with different members of the committee, had passed a motion that was brought forward by planning staff asking the committee when they felt a survey was required as part of an application. So it was quite an extensive motion, but it did occur sometime between Richard's arrival and my departure.
Right, so we know what happened, just can't remember like the details.
Do you remember the address of the property that?
So it wasn't actually an address of the property. So it was specifically an item that we brought forward as a priority issue item to have the committee's direction on. So it was entirely separate from an application. It was us as staff trying to figure out when it was cumbersome to ask for a survey up front as part of an application, whereas there's might be other times that it's more appropriate
There's some
to
framework around just like.
exactly. So anyways, that is what I had brought to the attention, was that is in existence
Did
somewhere.
that end up in the terms of reference for our committee?
So
What happened with that?
sorry, last election would have been 2022. This would have happened sometime after the last election, whenever the
you're right.
terms of reference would have already been adopted by council. So this was just a resolution direction to staff.
So how do we find that? Just so that we can
Should be
have a
on the agenda
refresher and it be at the forefront of everyone's mind? How do we find that?
Well, normally there's an index, but for some reason I just can't locate that in the index. So I'm not saying it didn't happen, I just don't have it.
It's somewhere buried.
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing I can recall was something on like discrepancies in surveys, but that's not what we're discussing today. So.
I'm happy to touch base after the meeting and see how I can help. Okay.
Would the staff request not have been embedded within the agenda package? In some manner, report?
Normally be something, and it would be part of the minutes is an action item. There would be some record somewhere, which I just don't think we've done enough to find it. So
Okay.
that's our homework.
I think it would be a good refresher for us all to have, so that we have some guidelines that, right? Yeah, okay.
Thank you for your offer of assistance, Mary.
Okay,
Yeah, so I guess that'll be another motion for another time. Was that what that's going on? We'll bring it back.
there already was a motion, right?
Yeah, there was already a motion of this committee that was passed, and it was direction to staff, but it was a number of years ago. It was part of this term, if I recall, though.
Okay, that
Just
makes
good
sense.
to have a refresher, I think. Okay. Project updates, none. Roundtable, nothing. Next meeting, Thursday, April 9th, 2026. Adjournment. Stephen, Alan. Okay.
Thank you, guys. This is great.
Sorry, who first? You moved that. Who seconded? Yvonne.
Yes.
If it was this term,
It's just
would
like a
that
council,
not
it's
have been
just
a
like a
minor
council
variance?
meeting. I'm always.